Welcome to Bible Study Together's daily dive into Titus. I am Peter Schrock, the founder of Bible Study Together and a life and marriage coach at togethertransformed.com. We are in our third week of our study, and this is the fourth day. In this video, we'll be going over the daily Bible questions and their answers. So let's get started. What does Paul teach about the master-slave relationship, and how do we apply this today? Well, let's take a closer look at how he actually talks about this in Titus chapter 2. We'll start off here in verse 9. Bondservants are to be submissive to their own masters in everything. They are to be well-pleasing, not argumentative, not pilfering, but showing good faith, so that in everything they may adorn the doctrine of God our Savior. So some of the things here that really stand out to me particularly is that they're to be submissive, they're to be pleasing and not being argumentative, and that they're supposed to be trustworthy and not steal. So this really kind of embodies how we are to live and act really as kind of a employee-employer relationship, or anything for that matter, where you're functioning under the order and direction of someone else, and how to essentially do that in an honorable, trustworthy, respectful way. Where you're a productive asset to the person who you're functioning under the order of them. And the reason why Paul, makes this a big deal, why he even gives this instruction, like why is it that we're to do this? And he says something very specific here. It's in verse 10 here. It says, so that in everything they may adorn the doctrine of God our Savior. So what does this mean? Adorn the doctrine. It's kind of a weird phrase, but adorn really means to make something beautiful, make something pretty, to set it in order in a way that it makes it special and attractive. And then the doctrine is a fancy word for teaching. So really what this is getting at is that when we live our lives in a way that is honoring and productive to our employers, to our society, and our relationships with other people, it makes it so that the teaching of God looks beautiful. And why does it do that? Because the teaching of God teaches us to live this way. And so when we live this way in front of other people, it shows the wisdom and knowledge of God and blesses everyone that we're around. How are our lives impacted by Jesus giving himself, as described in Titus 2:14? So to get some context here, let's first kind of jump back just a little bit into verse 11 and read down through into 14. It says, for the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. And this is the key spot here. It says, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness, and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, who are zealous for good works. So what we see here that stands out to me particularly is that he gave himself to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for himself a people of his own possession who are zealous for good works. He's taking us out of lawlessness, out of rebellion, and he's bringing us to a place of people who are zealous to do good. So he's taking us from the place of A good example of this would be Zacchaeus. Let's go there in Luke 19, verse 1. All right, so here we are. I'm in Luke 19, verse 1, and we're just going to read this account of Zacchaeus. He entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him with joy. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. So we see here, Jesus came and he showed his grace and his favor. He laid his life down and he gave himself up. And as a result, this paved the way for people and preceded the way even for Zacchaeus, so that he could be forgiven of his sins, so that he could be redeemed, and he was changed from a man who was probably rich from cheating people, doing lawless things, and he became one who was zealous to do good works. So God is in the business of redeeming us, and he, in this case, redeemed Zacchaeus. What is similar about Titus chapter 2, verse 1, and Titus 2:15? Well, why don't we just take a peek at these passages first? So Titus chapter 2, verse 1 says, But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine. And then he goes on and explains this sound doctrine. And then let's jump down into to the bottom here. It says Titus 2:15. It says, Declare these things, exhort and rebuke with all authority. Let no one disregard you. So these verses kind of sandwich chapter 2 at the beginning, at the end, and he basically says to teach these things and to exhort and rebuke with all authority about these things, and let no one disregard you. And particularly even that word disregard is kind of interesting. It basically means to think around. You're not allowed to don't let people kind of weasel their way around these things and stuff. Because, and I think the heart of this, why it's so important that he's got these two statements sandwiching all this teaching, is that he's really saying that this stuff is important. These are things that are non-negotiables. The people need to live these ways. They need to learn how to walk in these things. And if they're not, don't let them weasel around them. You rebuke them with all authority. Hold them accountable, and teach them how to do this. So this is the heart right here of what Paul is trying to get people to lay hold of. And if they don't, they've missed the boat. All right, so this wraps up today's study here on Titus, and I'll see you again tomorrow.